The wind screamed across the barren ice plains, dragging ribbons of frozen dust across the horizon like shreds of ghostly silk. Elias Ward adjusted the seals on his thermal suit and watched the storm swallow the last of his drone lights. The outpost's beacon pulsed dimly behind him, a dying heart amid the white void. He'd been working construction in alien hellscapes for 20 years, but Row 9 was different, too cold, too empty, too alive with silence. Then the signal came, an emergency ping, faint but deliberate, broadcasting through static on an encrypted frequency. Not human, not automated, something was calling for help. He ordered his team to stay back and took the crawler alone. The machine's treads ground through the drifts until he reached a depression in the ice field, where the sensors flickered with wild energy readings. The snow was carved into spirals, as though heat had torn outward from a single, violent center. There, half buried under sheets of frost, lay a wreck that didn't belong to any human fleet, curved plating of silver-blue alloy, glowing faintly from within. He brushed the ice away with his gloved hands, revealing what looked like scales, each one reflecting light in crystalline patterns. The surface beneath moved, slow and shallow, like breathing. A tremor rippled through the ground. The crawler's sensors screamed. The ice cracked open in front of him, and a massive head emerged, eyes dim with exhaustion, pupils slit like a blade's edge. Steam escaped from its nostrils in bursts of dying heat. Behind it, two smaller shapes lay motionless, encased in frost. Ward froze, staring into eyes that looked back with something rawer than fear, pleading. Every instinct told him to flee, to call command, to seal the base. But the creature's chest rattled with a sound he recognized, even through the translator's static. "Cold, please, help." Ward swallowed hard, fingers trembling over the comm switch. "Command, this is Ward. I found survivors," he said, his voice barely audible over the storm. "They're not human and they're freezing to death." Inside the outpost, the air shimmered with heat distortion as generators strained against the cold. The miners gathered near the entry bay, their visors fogged, their hands close to their rifles. The enormous figures lay near the thermal vents, melting sheets of ice pooling around them. Ward had ordered every heater rerouted, every watt of power fed to the chamber. The result was chaos, lights flickering, systems failing, and tempers boiling over. "They're draining our core," Lieutenant Harris snapped, his face red from heat and rage. "That thing's pulling energy straight through the vents. We'll freeze before they thaw." Ward ignored him. He crouched near the largest of the beings, its metallic scales slowly regaining color. The translator sphere pulsed, decoding guttural tones into fragmented speech. "We sought the sun, broken our young, no warmth." The voice echoed like thunder caught in a whisper. The smaller creature stirred, a hatchling, its fragile wings trembling, eyes dull and glassy. Ward opened a panel on his wrist pad, calculating energy distribution. "If I cut the power to Section 3, we can keep them alive until morning," he murmured. Harris barked a laugh. "You're risking the whole base for lizards." "They're not lizards," Ward said quietly. "They're intelligent and they're dying." Hours passed. The storm outside grew worse, snow hammering the walls like shrapnel. Through the viewport, flashes of electric blue light rippled across the clouds, ion discharges reacting to the dragon's heat signatures. The outpost's temperature sensors fluctuated wildly, warning of structural stress. Yet Ward couldn't look away from the creatures. When the elder dragon opened its eyes again, its gaze fixed on him. A beam of faint luminescence passed between them, data streams flickering on Ward's visor. The translator translated not just words but thought patterns, images of a shattered world orbiting twin suns, a crash, a desperate escape. Ward steadied his breath. "You're safe now," he said softly, knowing it was a fragile lie. Outside, the ice moaned under pressure. Inside, something ancient and powerful stirred beneath the warmth. By the third day, the dragons no longer shivered. Their scales had begun to pulse faintly with inner light, a soft, rhythmic glow that synchronized with the hum of the outpost's generators. Ward watched as the mother exhaled a cloud of faint embers that hovered, suspended in the air, before dissolving into radiant dust. It wasn't smoke, it was energy. The sensors confirmed it. The creatures emitted low-level plasma, stable enough to be harnessed. It was impossible. It was revolutionary. When the elder dragon spoke again, its voice carried a resonance that vibrated through the steel walls. "We remember the heat of suns," it said, the translator echoing the words through a haze of static. "Now only frost remains." It turned its heavy head toward Ward. "You are the keeper of flame. You understand the hunger of worlds." Ward didn't know what to say. He was a foreman, not a diplomat, not a scientist. Yet he felt something shifting in him, a realization that these beings were more than survivors. They were relics of a cosmic age. As he questioned them further, fragments of their history unfolded. A civilization called the Karil, who once lived among fusion fields and magnetic storms, building crystal cities powered by living fire. Then came collapse, radiation storms, planetary decay, extinction. That night, the dragons helped recalibrate the outpost's failing reactor. The Patriarch instructed Ward through direct neural link, guiding his hands with shimmering light patterns that flickered across his visor. "Energy flows like thought," the dragon murmured inside his mind. "Control the rhythm, and you command creation." When the reactor stabilized for the first time in weeks, every light in the outpost flared bright white, bathing the frozen plains in artificial dawn. The men stared in awe. For a fleeting moment, warmth filled every corridor, but Ward knew balance was fragile. The system was too efficient, too unnatural. Someone would notice. The company always noticed when power began to flow too freely. And far beyond the storm, a satellite pinged the outpost's signature, transmitting it across the void. 2 nights later, the transmission arrived. It wasn't a message meant for human ears, it was an order. Ward replayed it 3 times, hoping the static had twisted its meaning, but the words stayed the same. Recover the energy anomaly. Secure the specimens. Terminate unauthorized entities if necessary. Novacore was coming. The warmth that once filled the outpost now felt like a crime. Ward stared through the viewport at the sleeping dragons, their bodies curled together like living reactors. The child's breathing had steadied, its scales pulsing with dim blue light. Around it, the air rippled faintly with magnetism, bending loose particles into slow, graceful spirals. The entire station hummed in rhythm with its heartbeat. The miners gathered in the control bay, their voices sharp and frightened. Harris slammed his fist against the console. "You knew this would happen. They tracked the power surge. They'll confiscate the whole base and strip it for tech." Ward's jaw tightened. "They'll kill them, Harris, you know they will." "They're not our problem," someone muttered. "They're assets." He wanted to shout, to remind them that those assets had saved their lives by repairing the reactor. But words felt small against fear. He turned back to the viewport and froze. The dragonling was gone. The alarm klaxon shattered the silence. Heat signatures spiked near the outer hangar. Ward sprinted through the corridor, boots pounding over steel, until he saw the light of a shuttle powering up. 2 crewmen, Jansen and Cole, were loading something heavy into the cargo bay. Ward didn't think. He drew his sidearm and fired into the air. "Stop." Jansen turned, his face pale beneath his visor. "Do you have any idea what this thing's worth? We could retire on one of their scales." Behind them, the mother dragon's roar tore through the metal walls, shaking the entire facility. Panels burst. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Ward shielded his face as molten heat filled the hangar. The air shimmered, and in that instant he understood what true fury sounded like when spoken in flame. The blast door ruptured under the force of the dragon's rage. A surge of radiant heat poured through the corridor, bending steel like clay and shattering the observation windows. Ward fell to the ground, shielding his eyes as the mother's wings unfurled, vast membranes glowing with plasma veins, each movement sending ripples of light across the outpost. The kidnappers screamed as their shuttle melted around them, the hull dripping into molten pools. Jansen reached for his weapon, but the air itself burned, and he was gone before the shot left his hand. Ward staggered to his feet, coughing through smoke. "Stop!" he shouted, voice cracking through the chaos. "You'll destroy everything." The dragon turned, her eyes blazing like small suns. The translator failed under the intensity of her frequency, but her meaning struck him directly, carved into his mind. "They took my child." Through the haze, Ward spotted movement, a small, trembling shape near the fuel line, half buried under debris. The dragonling was alive but cornered by spreading flames. Ward ran forward, ignoring the heat warnings flashing red across his visor. He reached the hatchling and dragged it